Just to begin, like I said, this is kind of my interview process for the organization, Road Trip Nation.
Sure.
I don't know if you got my email, but
I did, yeah.
yeah, so I'm hoping to be sent on one of the road trips across the country.
Mhm.
And I came across your work,
Mhm.
and I thought that you running your own company, SLG Publishing, and opening this place was really awesome. So I was just interested in hearing how you got started in this business, maybe what your motivations were behind starting it.
Um, I don't know. I didn't really have any specific motivation. I think comics are just sort of something that comes to people, like you get involved with it. For me, it was, I started selling comics when I was out of high school and just did it on the side while I was going to college. And then decided I would maybe take a stab at it, as a full-time thing because I was going to change my major and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. So comics were always kind of a thing that I was doing while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And publishing comics came as an offshoot of having the store, which, I just wanted to see if I could do it. And I've just been doing it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like I said, oh, I want to do comics. I mean, I did, but it wasn't like ever part of my plan that I was going to like do this professionally or even be doing this long.
Right. When do you think was your turning point for switching from doing comics as a hobby to finally going at it full force?
Well, I guess the turning point was when we made a little money at it. So I was like, oh, well, there's actually something here. I mean, that's kind of everybody's tipping point at some point. But I guess it was the real turning point was as at a point where I was writing for DC Comics, and I basically quit, walked out on a contract just because I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I realized I probably wasn't going to get any more work out of DC because they don't particularly care for their freelancers giving them the finger and walking out, such as the case was. So and I was publishing, and I had my store still, and I thought, well, if I just focus on publishing, it might actually be able to support me. And so I just decided I would focus on that and just give it a little time.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of that was, I guess, be the second little tipping point there.
Right.
Would be when I had to do that, and I was making my living from doing comics but not my own, to shifting to being a real professional publisher. I mean, it was not that we weren't professional publishers. We were. I always considered us that, but it was like, and then it became the priority. My entire focus was that.
Mm-hmm. And what did you study in college?
Originally, it was a psychology major.
Okay.
I was going to change my major to journalism, and I realized I didn't really want to do that either. So, but yeah, originally I was a psychology major, and I was going to go to, I think, Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just chose. I realized that wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of college students go through. I know I definitely went through a transition within college, and that's kind of how I ended up here because I think I'm still transitioning.
Yeah, and it's harder for you kids today now. It's like schools aren't as, back then, 30 some years ago, or geez, almost 40 now. People change their major like they change socks. Like,
Yeah.
And now it's like, my son was a math major at San Jose State,
Uh-huh.
and he wanted to change computer science. It's like, nope, graduate.
Yeah.
Or pull out and reapply or whatever. But you're going to graduate as a math major.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a math major. So, there's a lot less flexibility for younger folks now.
Right.
So I think that's unfair. I mean, I understand it. The professional students kind of ruining the college system, or help ruin the college system, because you have people just siphoning money off the government and educational teat, to
Mm-hmm.
avoid, joining the real world. Or you get so bogged into having student loans that the minute you step out of college, you need to start repaying.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. It's like, oh, you always want to be in school, so you never have to start paying those loans back. But that's we could argue that to death.
Right.
It's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
Would you have any advice for maybe someone my age who's, you know, fresh out of college, still looking for a specific interest? I know you mentioned you wanted your son to finish his math major.
Well, he wanted it. I mean, that was his
Yeah.
decision. But I mean, yeah, I mean, once you have something on paper that says you accomplished something, that can open up a lot of doors.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure you're knocking on as many doors as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to be pragmatic. Obviously, you have to make a living. But don't ignore kind of like the little voice in your back of your head that says, well, let me try this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't try it, then it will never work, But sometimes you have to just, take a running leap and just hope you don't break your leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the big part of it. You have plenty of time later on in life to like be, beaten down by the system and work at some 9 to 5, and like there's always going to be someone that will hire you to do something.
Yeah.
And you can hate that or hate something else, So this is like a joy in your life that you can find on your own. We're separate from your work, and I don't think that your work needs to define you. So.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, you could be a person. You could still be. I mean, we see a lot of musicians that come through here. It's a music venue, and there's, people who spend time and work on their music in a professional manner, in a real manner, that would say, hey, I'm a professional musician, but
Mm-hmm.
they're, doing their corporate work, and they don't allow their personalities to be defined by the work that they do.
Right.
That the stuff that they do to pay rent. These guys are still musicians. They still love what they do. And maybe because, they're not burdened with the notion of trying to make it in the music industry, which is so hard,
Mm-hmm.
Or in any kind of thing. It's just so hard to do. Like, so few people do make it. Maybe that they're getting more joy out of the thing that they love, because it's not, it's not a dollars and cents game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a passion. It's a project that they're working on things that they want. I've always, when we publish comics, there's a lot of people that want to do comics, but I want to publish comics by people who need to do them.
Mm.
And it's the same thing with music. It's the same thing. If you need to do something, you're going to do it. It doesn't matter how much money you do or don't make.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into something to make money, then generally, I mean, you could make money at it, but it loses its spontaneity. I think it loses its genuineness, and the things that people respond to are things that come from an honest place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to think about it now, but even I like to use the example of Harry Potter. It's a $1 billion franchise, right?
Yeah.
And nobody can separate their. You say Harry Potter, and you may as well see dollar signs, right? But at its core, Harry Potter was a story written by a single mother in a coffee shop,
Mm-hmm.
based on something that she would want her kids to read later on. She wasn't trying to be a $1 billion franchise. She was just trying to write a good book.
Mm-hmm.
And she did. And then a lot of people write good books and don't succeed. That doesn't mean, I mean, if she just had let that notion get into your head,
Mm-hmm.
then she never would have written the book.
Mm-hmm.
She just did it for herself.
Right.
Even to a lesser extent, Twilight has a similar thing, although it's garbage.
Yeah.
But it's equally honest, and I think that's why it appealed to people. And it's like this really reflected her view, of like, I don't know, evil ethicalness. I don't know. I really have no idea. I've only half have read one book,
Yeah.
and I really don't like it. But I mean, millions of people do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like that sort of safe romance, that safe danger that kids need. I want to
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I need peril, but I want to tuck myself in at night.
Yeah.
So.
So I know earlier you were mentioning, don't just do something for the monetary value. So how would you define success, and what do you think is your most successful part of your life so far?
Well, my most successful part of my life, I guess, would be, look at the dog. I'm just worried about it still. Homer, come here.
Yeah.
Come here. The personal part of my life is my most successful part of my life. My family and all that. I mean, that's how I gauge success. Other people, I mean, it's cliched, oh, family is everything, but you know, my kids are my friends now because they're adults, and you know, my wife is my friend, and I feel very comfortable at home, and you know, that's how I gauge it. You know, I gauge it that's what everybody really wants. You know, you want to go home to something, you want to have a reason for doing what you're doing. That is my particular reason, and I think I'm most successful at that. Everything else, you know, the business part of it, I mean, I'm very, very pleased that we've lasted this long publishing comics when other people didn't, you know. A lot of people with more money, you know, behind them, but maybe less of an idea. I'm very proud of that, but I am trying not to let it define who or what I am as an individual. You know, I also don't I'm not going to let its success or failure, you know, define me either. You know, it's like I remember watching, I can't remember the name of the show, but it was a very odd show that would have a celebrity interviewing another celebrity, and this one was Dave Chappelle interviewing Maya Angelou, which was very, very interesting.
That's a good combo.
And the thing that was the most interesting about it was that what it became was her lecturing him at a certain point, and because he's going in there and talking, and he's like, because he's Dave Chappelle, he can't resist but talk about himself.
Yeah. So,
but he's in a position to where he's like in awe of this woman, and here, why don't you go on, or just lay down, or do something. But he's like in awe of this woman, and rightfully so. And so she looks at him, and through this whole conversation, and she spouts out with, "Listen, it's like you don't pick it up, and you're never gonna have to lay it down." Did you get that? What that means? And he's like, "I think I do." He's just like, you know, when people are telling you you're on top of the world and you're the greatest thing and whatever, just leave that. Don't pick that up. Because conversely, later on, when people are saying you're a bum, you're nothing, you're a loser, which they will do, you're going to have to pick that up too. So if you don't pick it up, you're going to have to lay it down. Just leave it. Leave everything everyone says, the good stuff, the bad stuff, all of that stuff. Just leave it. And I think that's really important. I think that was my big takeaway from watching that, was like, yeah, you know, if you just worry about yourself and not what other people, I mean, not to the point of being insensitive, but if you're happy with what you did, ultimately that's its own reward. And it doesn't matter whether people liked it or didn't like it, you know. And it's like, if I had to if I only looked at the positive things that people said about the things that you publish or do, I would then have to also accept all the criticisms that I think might be unfair.
Right.
But so I just choose to ignore them all and just define success at what I do on my own terms. And that's really important. It's part of becoming sort of self-actualized, and becoming just becoming comfortable in your own skin. It takes time to get there. You know, you're a kid. Honestly, what you're like 22, 23? Yeah, something like that. So you're 5-6 years out of an environment where everybody was telling you were great.
Yeah.
You know, that's not that long ago. And then you get to college and it's like, you know, and it's like, but you managed to survive that. But it's like fresh in your mind is that I had a place to sleep every night, and people were feeding me, and everybody thought everything I did was great, and I got a gold star for showing up. And you know, life doesn't work that way. But so you have to kind of like internalize that and kind of like be pleased with on your own, you know, and then keep that to yourself. You know? Yeah. It's always the quiet guys. So you look at them and it's like, okay, yeah, that guy's pretty pleased with himself. Yeah. And that guy's a jerk too, but you know,
there might be a lot of stuff going on.
Just keep keep an even keel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Mhm.
You know, and then if there's something inside you that drives you, then you need to kind of like let it happen.
Mhm.
Understand that if it's something that, you know, is out there, like publishing comics or being a musician, whatever, chances are, as we define success and failure, you will fail.
Mhm.
Absolutely, 100%. You're gonna fail. You're gonna mess up.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
You know, that's not a reason not to try it, because you might not.
Mhm.
You know, it might work.
Did you ever have any doubt, I guess, going through the process of, you know, starting this company? Maybe would you feel comfortable talking about some of the failures you
Well,
experienced and
it's
putting that
it's
out
really
there?
weird because, you know, in the back of my head, I was just not going to continue to do this. This was just not something I was going to be doing.
Mhm.
So, I think I have more doubts now. There were, you know, maybe the decision to have a music venue was a bad idea. I don't know. Maybe the jury's still out on that. Not that it's not a great venue, but it's just, as a business, it's a tough road. You
Mhm.
know, I think that I spent too much time on the learning the nuts and bolts on the job. So I have those kind of regrets that, had I realized earlier on that I was going to really make this into a business, is that I would have gone and gotten people who knew what they were doing in areas where I did not.
Mhm.
And I feel like in terms of publishing, I feel very comfortable on the creative side. Maybe in terms of business, I am not that good.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not the worst, but the problem becomes when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to build something that is a company, right? That is a going concern, that that is based on a creative impulse. Is that you have to at some point separate that creative from the business impulse and develop a sense of pragmatism. You can't continue to put money into things that don't work, or
Mhm.
people that aren't working out. You know, sometimes we're very guilty of that. I don't regret it, you know, but those are the mistakes. It's
Mhm.
like putting faith in the wrong place. Maybe being overly generous to everyone, you know, because the creative aspect. It's like you that might be something that I would think about it more in terms of what's the long term health of the company going to be? Are people being served properly if they're not getting anything?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it becomes it's I don't look at it in terms of failures. It's learned of maybe perhaps just opportunities that were missed, or like decisions that could have been made that maybe should have been made earlier. You
Mhm.
know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it
You
makes
know,
sense.
it's like, oh, I learned this now. I really wish I knew that 5 years ago. You know, or who could have seen, you know, near economic collapse coming,
Right.
right? But I mean, that's like, okay, whoa, now we have no, you know, there's no safety net for for that. So you have to. That's a lesson you learn, and you learn it too late. You know,
Mhm.
so. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't like to think about things in terms of success or just failure or whatever. Just maybe perhaps missed or lost opportunities or things like that.
Yeah, I like that. It puts
Yeah.
a positive spin on it.
Yeah, because it's like there's failure is failure. You know, you have heart failure, you die.
Right.
You know, but I mean, and then you just have to think that you're going to be able to survive whatever mistake you make, and then learn and build on it.
Mhm.
So.
Cool. Did you get a lot of support when you first started doing this business? Or
For
when you made the switch from like your psychology major to pursuing comic
No,
publishing?
well, I think that, you know, like on a personal level, my family and all that just kind of thought, well, he'll go back to school someday.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, they supported, but personal on a personal level, I got a lot of support from my family. I think that they, especially as it built into something bigger, you know, and but no, I mean, uh,
Did you ever have like run across people that thought you were weird or crazy or?
Oh yeah, I still do,
Mhm.
and that's okay because maybe I am weird and crazy. I don't know, but yeah, it's hard to call. People will support you as long as people love to back a winner,
Mhm.
you know, and it takes a lot more guts to go out there and get behind something that looks a little odd or strange.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of support sort of after we made some things work, but not before. And that holds true today with the things that I publish. Even our most successful comic, Johnny Homicidal Maniac, barely
Mhm.
sold 3,000 copies when it came out.
Really?
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I mean, it was by
Jonan Vasquez.
yes.
He went to my high school, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was Mount Pleasant.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um, they should probably build a statue to him there. I mean, I don't know what
They
other
should.
what other student really has achieved what he has
Yeah.
from that high school. I'm sure there are, but I mean, you don't want to compare like a cartoonist to like a brain surgeon or whatever.
Right.
And I'm sure there are people who have achieved at a high level, but that's he's a great story. You know, I mean, that's the guy. He literally walked into my place 20 years ago,
Mhm.
and just left off some stuff, and then it was just not ready to be published, but we did it anyways.
Mhm.
So, um, but yeah, I mean, you know, people, it's hard to think that those comics that I think even by his own admission he would say, yeah, these aren't that good,
Mm.
you know, or at least they're not that well drawn. I mean, he's certainly a much better draftsman now than he ever was back then, but um, you know, that we're still selling that, and it still sells like really big, not big, but respectable numbers for something that's over 15 years old, that was done by a 19-year-old kid when he was in
Mhm.
high school. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, people don't really get behind our stuff until we prove that it sells elsewhere,
Mhm.
and then they get behind it. You know, Milk and Cheese by this guy Evan Dorkin is another great example. So many people said, we love Milk and Cheese, but it'll never sell.
Yeah.
And then it's sold, and it's like, oh, you know, we love Milk and Cheese, and it sells. And then, you know, it's the same thing with everything,
Yeah.
over and over again. Same old story.
Yeah.
Can't even listen to it.
How are you able to, I guess, motivate yourself while all that negative noise is around?
Well, it's about, like I said, just being confident in yourself. It's
Mhm.
like being true to yourself. And, you know, there's an aspect of it. It's like, well, had it really blown up, then I would have stopped, you know. But we're making our successes a little bit at a time, and I knew I had faith, you know.
Mhm.
And you have to have some level of confidence, and you're gonna put. I mean, you don't think about what it takes to publish a comic. Forget about the artist for a second, but
Yeah.
that's faith. I mean, you take. I mean, however much money out of your pocket to put something out, and it's a lot, and there's an ongoing cost in terms of your time
Mhm.
and whatever. It's just like thousands and thousands of dollars that can go into just putting out one comic book, you know. And that's like saying, I have faith in you.
Mhm.
You know, I think that you will turn into something, and occasionally I'm right, you know.
Yeah.
So you just have to tune it out, because the people, like I said, don't pick it up, don't lay it down,
That's a good
right?
Yeah.
Just like, okay, well, if these people are right, and then this has no merit, then nothing I've ever done has any merit, and I should just stop.
Mhm.
And I don't think that was the case. I think that a lot of things just needed its opportunity to find its own level,
Mhm.
and that's like, you know, kind of a big thing.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess just to kind of wrap things up, looking at your life from your childhood to where you are now and the road you've taken in between, I guess what 3 words would you use to describe your path?
Yeah, road less traveled. I don't know. 3 words to describe my path. I guess School of Hard Knocks is 4 words.
We could take that.
Well, it's not even true. I guess it is true to a certain extent, but yeah, uh, you know, be true to myself. I mean, I've never really pretended to be something other than what I was. You know, when people come to me and want their comics published, I never sugarcoat. I always tell them, you will fail. You know, I always tell them, this probably will not sell. You're probably not going to make any money. And it's probably the truth. You know, if they come back and say, I'm ready to do this, then you know you've found someone who needs to do something. And that's probably where you're going to find some real honest work.
Yeah.
So just being true to that, being honest, being true to myself, taking that and extending it out to other people. You know, I've always try to tell people, it's like, you know, you're not going to like what I have to say. More often than not, you're probably just going to end a conversation with me either feeling angry at me or bad about yourself. It's like, but you can always count on that whatever I'm telling you is the truth as I see it. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. There's no money in that.
Yeah.
If I sat here and told you, yeah, this is going to sell 1,000 copies, this is going to sell 1,000,000 copies, I'd be lying to you. And then when it didn't sell 1,000,000 copies, you'd be angry with me. You know, so, you know, moderate your expectations and understand and do this because you really, really, really need to do it and want to do it. You know, this is your stepping stone. This is your first effort. This is whatever it might be. You know, put your best into it still.
And I imagine these are the standards you hold yourself to as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you have to, you know, and it's like you have to just sort of you have to be honest with yourself about who you are, what you can do, and what you can't do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's really it's a weird narrow path, you know, and there's a chasm on each side of it, and the slippery slope is sheer.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's kind of like what happens, you know, when you take the safer road, or you take the roads that, you know, maybe where you're obfuscating, laying out, you know, you're laying groundwork that has no foundation. That might look like a nice, wide, safe path, but it's built on nothing. So yeah, now I've completely lost my train of thought here. I have no idea where I was going with that. But yeah, I mean, you know, I apply to myself, you know, everything I apply to other people. You know, I don't ask of people things I won't ask of myself.
Yeah.
Like here, even to just to make a real world example, we're running a music venue here, and we don't book rowdy shows. I just try not to book them because it's just too nice of a place, and I just won't have it. But on occasion, things will happen because they just do.
Yeah.
So if you know, a fight busts out, or you know, pit needs to get broken up, I'll jump in first. I'm not going to ask someone to do this for me because I booked this band, I put them on the stage. I'm accountable for what happens here, you know, which is why I tell people, it's like, you got to be chill.
Yeah.
You know, don't incite your fans into something, because as soon as I'm done kicking your fans' ass, I'm going to turn around and kick your ass.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm not, if I just stood back and said, oh, go grab those guys, you know, whatever, then what kind of hypocrite would I be? It's like, oh, I'm creating a problem and I expect someone else to clean up my mess. That's not the way I work, you know. I am accountable for what I do.
Yeah.
Good things and bad things. You know, if somebody's unhappy with me as a publisher, they want to move on, I let them go.
Yeah.
I don't argue. Make money, don't make money, whatever. I mean, what am I going to do? Sit here and like beg you to stay, or
Yeah.
or what? I mean, if you're unhappy with what I've done or with the situation, it's not going to change. You know, because honestly, I've given you the best I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. I think those are all the major questions I've had for you.
All right.
This was really insightful. I think the biggest thing I got from it was, I am gonna fail, but I think you have a good grasp on being okay with that.
Be that negative. That just meant it's just like.
Yeah, or things will happen that I might not necessarily.
You might not fail. It
or,
might not. If you take a huge gamble on something, chances are it's not going to work.
Yeah, and that's okay.
But that's all right. And you know what? If you decide it's not worth the gamble, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you have to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
It's not like
I'm
life
a
is not in a
failure.
text. The answers to life are not at the back of the book.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's just like you just got to live it and do it. And it's like, all right, and then just be okay with the idea that you might not work, that it might not happen for you.
Right.
It's like you're doing this thing, you're putting your best effort into this. I guess no one's going to see this, which is why I'm being so honest.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess.
good that you're honest.
We should put this up on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
It's probably the most insightful interview I've ever given.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that.
So,
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's like, yeah, just brace yourself.
Yeah.
Just be ready.
Yeah.
And when it works out, don't turn into a dick.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
basically it right there.
Good stuff. Well, cool. I guess that's about it.
All right.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for
Sure.
taking time out of your day to meet with me.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. I'll let you know how